My name's Dana Smith. Between Breath and Air is a podcast exploring holistic wellness in our modern world. I've been exploring the intersections of physical and mental health, creativity, spirituality, and social responsibility in the realms of wellness for the past decade of my dual careers as a massage therapist and life coach. And this podcast is an extension of that exploration. Join me and my guests as we look closely at the many facets of embodying whole human wellness in this achingly complex world. Kristy Gordon is a Canadian-born artist living in New York City. She's an adjunct professor at the New York Academy of Art and also teaches and mentors artists online to find their artistic voice and launch thriving careers. Her paintings have been described by Galleries West as contradictory and enigmatic scenes that unravel centuries of power relations and imagine a new future. Her portraits draw the viewer into the model's experience with their emotive honesty, and her more recent departure into complex scenes of dystopic interworld realities juxtapose beauty and pain and idealism and doom. She plays with tension between realities that's demonstrated by using traditional painting skill to portray modern-day topics and scenes. Her work is both familiar and visionary. But that's just my take. Let's get Kristy talking about her work and her creative process. So hello, Kristy. I am so pleased to have you here. Welcome.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a delight. So I'd love to jump straight into you talking about your work if you're open to that. What I've noticed about your work is that it appears to me that your work is an extension of what you're grappling with as we live through these times. Is this interpretation accurate? And can you say more?
My art is definitely always connected to what's happening in the world and also like what's happening within myself. And it also is kind of driven by my intuition. So a lot of the time, I sometimes even find that like themes that I'm dealing with almost come up. It's kind of strange, but like in the future, like I think that when we create art, we're almost being moved by something greater than ourselves. So we don't always exactly know like what we're creating. And sometimes it seems to be sort of responding to even things that'll happen in the future. But it's definitely coming through me, through, I would say, something greater. And a lot of artists like talk about that experience of just sort of showing up and if they can, just remaining open and like following those impulses and being sort of surprised by what comes out.
Absolutely. It's so interesting how art making is really a combination of like having this reality skill development to like translate what is coming through you. So it's like you need to hone skills in your present time reality so that you can kind of span these visions that you have and be able to bring them into being.
Totally.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's true because it sort of combines, like, of course, as artists, well, we'll try and develop our technical skills and everything like that, and that kind of gives us the creative freedom to paint what we want to paint. But then there's also this aspect of just like opening ourselves up and like hearing our intuitive impulses and following those inner nudges, and then kind of figuring out with our techniques how to like make it look like what we think we'd like it to look like and hopefully look good in some way.
Yeah, I get stuck there.
Like, it doesn't have to look good. Like, I mean, that's another big blocker too. That's for all of us. The big block is trying to make everything look good, and so we find we have a lot. It can actually be really like helpful in our artistic practice to deliberately try to ruin something or like consciously make something that we think will look bad. And it's very freeing, and that was actually part of my process and coming in touch with my own creative voice.
I want to get into that in a bit. I want to ask you though about using art as a tool to navigate troubling times. Do you find that that you have answered some questions or for yourself or created a type of support for yourself when you're navigating the world?
I don't know if I've ever necessarily gotten answers per se, but I think there is like this aspect of like a cathartic healing that happens that lots of us have probably experienced when we just like finally allow ourselves to feel the feeling that we've been avoiding feeling for so long. And
Hmm.
it almost releases the feeling in doing just that. And so with art making that like addresses anything difficult, it sort of acts in that way. It sort of just like faces it straight on and feels it and accepts it. And just in doing that, yeah, there's like a cathartic release or something, kind of an acceptance, I guess, and yeah, some kind of integration.
Yeah, yeah. The way you speak about this, it sounds like your work is more than just making an image and very much about a healing process.
Ways and sort of a self-exploration
Mm.
process, which is also like kind of exploring, the universe as well. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I guess yeah, it's sort of like finding our true selves, and like within that, I believe that we're like created to connected to something greater. So we're sort of feeling our true selves, feeling our authentic impulses, and then getting more connected to this greater whole, greater something greater than ourselves. Which so many creative like people have talked about, this feeling of being moved by something other than ourselves when we just are open. The more we can kind of open ourselves up and um yeah, and release temporarily those inclinations to make it look good and be a perfectionist and everything. I find that later I'll as I'm finishing a painting, it's okay to like come in and try and make it technically good. But at a certain point, having released that a little bit to just play around and just sort of follow my impulses.
Hmm. Hmm. It's this whole like stepping into your authentic expression and finding ways to channel that is, from what I can tell from my seat, where I've worked with lots of different types of people, that's really the secret sauce in feeling like we're leading a life that is aligned with ourselves and our callings. So, I mean, you're speaking at it from a very specifically art perspective, but I've also heard people who work in finance say that, all of a sudden something shifted in me and I found a way to be in alignment with this and I was pulled forward to take action in a certain way.
Sure.
So so
That's
it's
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So I think that it's, well, I don't know. I'm noticing a correlation there. I don't have an answer. That there's something about humans and and needing to be in this process to achieve a level of fulfillment or contentment.
Yeah, totally. And like in some ways it sounds like you're kind of talking about when we kind of get epiphanies or like
Mm.
maybe follow the signs, like when we're in alignment, we're sort of more open and able to kind of hear what the universe is nudging us towards as well.
Hmm.
And that always feels like I love getting signs and epiphanies and sort of knowing that I'm being guided, like whether it's in my work or in my life.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Can you say more about that? I'm so intrigued. Like, what are some of the recent signs that you've had where you're like, ooh, there was one?
Let me see. Well, I suddenly can't think of, oh, let me think. Well, I mean, the biggest one that I ever had, this is not super recent, but like the most glaring one that I ever had was a number of years ago. I was living in New York. This is kind of not art related, but I get I get signs about my art too. And I was having a financial crisis, and I was like, really wondering what to do. And I suddenly had this like intuitive thought pop into my mind, like move back to Nelson. And I was like, wow, that's drastic. Like, really? And then, but I right away I had this feeling like that is the answer. I was like, oh wow, this is a big, big thought. And then I was like asking the universe to give me signs, if that's really what I should do here, like give me a big sign. And then I think the next day I was walking out of my Brooklyn apartment and looked at the sidewalk, and someone had etched into, like when you sort of etch into wet cement, they etched in the words Big Nelson 2018, and it was the year 2018. And Nelson is the name of the city I was thinking of moving back to. So it was like, whoa, this is like a booming voice in the sky. Like, it can't get any clearer than this. And so I planned it. I like ended up moving that to Nelson. I had to walk past that every day. It confirmed my decision. When I looked closer, in tiny words written beside all of that was actually the word blondie, and I'm blonde. So I was like, this is crazy. Like, how could this be for anything but me? And then I moved back to Canada, and it turned out to be absolutely perfect. And I never would have thought, like, pretty shortly after, or, a little while after having moved back, the pandemic hit, and I was glad to be in a quiet little town. And I also, like, after I moved back to Nelson, got this big art grant, like, everything lined up. And so, if we're following the signs, then things like line up in our life. And I have gotten intuitive guidance and signs, like with my art too. Sometimes I'll have like a problem with a painting that I just can't seem to resolve. And I'll kind of ask. I think it's helpful to ask the universe for signs. Um, and there was one specific problem I was trying to like figure out how to make this frame, and it seemed impossible and stuff. And then I had a dream one night about a way that could work, and I knew as soon as I woke up, like, that's gonna work. And I tried it, and it did. So those are like kind of a couple examples.
That's fantastic. I go in and out of being in partnership with the universe in that way too. I'm definitely
Totally.
in partnership these days, and one of the ways that always shows me that is I see some people call them angel numbers on the clock where it's like
Yes.
11:11 or 2:22, and I'm just really good at looking at the clock in 11-minute increments because all day long I'm like, oh look, it's 12:12, or oh look, on and on and on. So that's one way that I get those little universal
Ooh,
nudges. I just find it amusing, like yeah,
yeah.
and it makes it more
And sort
fun.
of confirmation sometimes that we're on the right track. It's
Yeah, totally. It points me to playfulness, which is one of the keys for me to knowing that I'm on track. If I'm in play, that's where I should be. That's where the best energy comes. That's where I get the best ideas. That's where I have the best collaborations. That's where I lose track of time and I'm in that flow state. So it just helps me stay in that energy of playfulness.
I love that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so true. It's interesting that you mentioned that because one of the things that that's really helped me and that I teach in my Visionary Artist Master program is doing an intuitive paintings, and that is basically to recover a sense of play in our creative practice, actually. So I like that
Mm.
you mentioned play
Can we
a
talk
lot.
about that? I want to know more about the intuitive painting process.
Yeah, so intuitive painting is something that I learned about from Domini Celebra's book, Painting the Landscape of Your Soul. And as soon as I read about it, I knew that it was going to transform my art. And it's basically where you do like your first gut impulse. I usually use like kids' paints and like a big rollout piece of paper. So it's kind of playful already. And I often work on the floor. And you just get all set up, and then you're like, okay, what's the first thing? What's my first intuitive impulse here to do? And whatever it is, you don't judge it, you don't question it, you just do it. And then you like, here you're next. Like, what color am I thinking? What shape? And then you just do that. And so intuitive painting bypasses like the logical side of our brain, and it allows our inner child and inner artist to just play. And the best part is anyone can do it. Like, I often hear from people who feel intimidated about art or something, but absolutely anyone can do this. And it's a really good way to like release trapped energy. It can help kind of like if you have like a problem that or some struggle, it can really help to like hold that in mind and sort of think about what kind of colors and shapes the feeling inside you is like generating, and then like paint that, like. And also to like um Dominique Libra always says to ruin a painting and ruin it often, which is like so hard for an artist sometimes to be like, okay, I'm just gonna ruin it right now. But it sort of like helps us release our perfectionism, and then over time, like listening to our intuitive impulses in this way and just following each intuitive guidance, we find that our intuition starts to work more in our serious painting practice too. Like we'll just get a little intuitive nudge, like, oh, I wonder what would happen if I do this, or I wonder what it would look like if I do that, and we can sort of hear our intuition a little bit more. And we might get like epiphanies in our art, and so it really helps to connect us with our intuition. But it's just very playful and free and yeah, very
Very,
powerful.
very low stakes.
Exactly.
I noticed
And
that too go ahead.
well, and sometimes like it's actually wild how amazing the stuff I see it for like in my students' work all the time. It's like it's mind-blowing how cool the stuff that comes out of it is. Like so often we'll be like, I can't believe I just did this. Like, where did this come from? And so it can be a really good way of generating ideas too for our finished work. Maybe it won't be technically perfect. It definitely won't be, but the ideas and the even the composition, sometimes it's just amazing the stuff that comes out of us.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're bypassing the cognitive part of the brain and you're just trying to channel from the subconscious. Almost like you're working with the
Totally.
dream space, right?
Yes. A lot of the time they are really dreamlike.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Something in what you said reminded me of something a teacher I had once said. He said it just kind of off the cuff. Dylan Cram. I was taking a course with him, and it was kind of just like it wasn't like a declaration of this really wise statement, which is usually when it's the wisest thing. But he just said, oh, yeah, well, you just make a mark and you respond to it. And that's all the art making is. And I was just like, my mind just exploded. I was like, you're right, Dylan, you're right. That's all it is. No matter like if you're doing an intuitive painting, you're going to make a mark and you're going to respond to that. Or if you're in like
Totally.
a highly specific point in your painting where you're bringing it around the corner and this is the final strokes, you're going to make a mark and then you're going to respond to that mark. And that's it.
Totally. That's actually so true. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like what I also loved about it is it really just took it back to the simplicity, right? Because I get so precious with my work, and that's for sure what stops me most of the time is I either materials like, oh, the materials are so expensive, I have to make it worth something, or as ridiculous as that is. So sometimes I'll make myself work on cardboard. Or maybe it's like, whatever, I'm at a stage in the painting where I've placed value on it. I'm like, I like where it is right now. I don't want to mess it up, and it becomes valuable and precious. So taking it back to this idea of like one mark at a time, it's all good. It just really simplifies it for me. And I find a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah, totally. One mark at a time, and yeah, just like with life, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Do you want to talk about self-portraiture? I,
Yes, I have been doing self-portraits since I started painting pretty much. It's
mm,
always been such a great vehicle for like self-introspection and um so many artists do self-portraits too. And I mean, I guess all paintings are sort of an exploration of like whatever's going on. I don't know if that's an overgeneralization, but most of my paintings, anyways, are like an exploration of something going on inside me. And I mean, I'm always around as a model too, so it's very easy to use my own face.
yep.
But yeah, I think they're very interesting.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I mean, my lens is always I'm just someone who's transformation oriented, right? So the topic of looking at the self in all its different ways is always present for me. And it is something that I have come back to over the years. Also, one, it's like, well, there I am. So, it's available. and
Totally.
and also the concept of like, I don't know, I've heard this in the past and it somehow stuck with me. So something about that means something if it's a phrase sticks with you for a time and it keeps repeating. I find that I'm like keep exploring it, and that is paint what you know. Or write what you know. I've also heard that. And so I'm like, well, if there's anything I know, it's me. I know me maybe too well. So, so yeah. What's your take on have you heard that phrase before? Like
I
paint
haven't
what you
heard
know?
that, but that makes total sense for the self-portraits.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, paint what you know and I don't know. It's interesting that so many artists have been drawn to self-portraits too. Like so many of my
Mm.
favorite artists do a lot of self-portraits. And it's also
Hmm.
interesting over time as we age to like look back at like, you know, paintings, self-portraits from 20 years ago and then to now. It's interesting to see the changes.
Absolutely. My mom was very good at saving my childhood artwork. Maybe a little too good.
Oh, nice. My mom
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And so there's this one, so I think my first intentional self-portrait, which was a project that we did in, I think, a grade 2 or grade 3.
Oh,
And I
nice.
still have it.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah. So that's really interesting because I remember like my outfit was the most important thing in that portrait. I had this yellow skirt and I was really liked the yellow skirt. But it was
Oh,
also interesting to
yes.
see how I interpreted my body, my hair, like how I made sense of myself at that time.
That
It's
is
very fast.
interesting.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
I remember doing lots of like paintings or drawings as a kid of like girls with really big skirts. Like the skirt would go all the way out to the edges of the painting. And somehow that just seemed like the best thing ever. But you're right, it's interesting about the clothing. Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe we were influenced by the same Disney films that had all these like
Maybe.
flowing princess skirts.
There was a book called The Girl with the Twirly Skirt or something, and it was a yellow skirt. I wonder, it made me think of that with your drawing.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm always a fan of a twirly skirt. That
Me
hasn't
too.
changed.
Absolutely.
Um, self-portraiture too, like I just want to link it back to because it's like what you said at the very beginning, it's like you're always in your painting because you're looking through your own eyes at the world. So no matter your subject, you
Yeah.
really are painting yourself because of how
Yeah.
you're interpreting it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you can go to so many different levels with this. Like, let's get trippy on it. Where else can we go with interpreting our perception of what we're seeing and how we're in that creation of artwork that isn't us? Is that even a
Well,
question?
no, no, yes. I do think that like a lot of the time my paintings are sort of metaphors of my internal state at the time. So
Uh-huh.
yeah. There's sometimes ones that are like more like battle scenes with explosions, and then there's
Right.
some that are more peaceful and mystical.
Mm.
Yeah.
Have you
So
you've
whether
did
they almost always have me in it just because even if I'm not necessarily me, like I'm just sort of a figure, like I have myself as a model all the time, so I'm always it's kind of just like um a byproduct of meeting models. So I'll normally be in there somewhere, but yeah, I think for me they're normally some kind of like allegory or metaphor of like my internal state at the time.
hmm How does that affect commission work?
Well, commissions are definitely different, and the client will really be guiding like the content of the commission almost always. So yeah, so that doesn't really come in like with commissions, and instead I'll be using my feelings and my intuition to like create the best painting ever, but with their concept.
Interesting. Do you feel like
Yeah.
you consciously have to shift into a different mode when you're doing that type of work?
Well, it still is like art making, like, and it still is like with the goal of making the best work that I possibly can. So there's still similar considerations that come up in all my paintings, like, best composition and how to make the color scheme work and,
Hmm.
move the eye around the canvas and just create like the strongest piece that I, yeah, possibly can. I mean, I guess it is like a shift. It doesn't feel like a huge shift in my brain. I just sort of start out kind of trying to find out exactly what they want and trying to kind of parse out what that would look like. And if it's like an imaginative painting, um there'll still be actually quite a bit of that creative process and creative aspect of me coming into it, but trying to like match it with their intention.
Mhm. I can see how leaning on your practice and skill will be the vehicle to get you there. That
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
totally.
Fascinating. That's why it's so important to have a steady practice, right? So it's like fitness, It's like you can't expect
Yeah.
yourself to climb Everest if you've been on the couch for your entire life, right? So it's a matter of like developing the skill and the practices to get yourself to that level of ability to where you can. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. We're just going to hike. We're going to climb Everest next weekend, no problem.
Yeah, and it is like baby steps. Like the
Yeah.
actually the most profound like thing that I started doing for my creative practice was to start painting for 25 minutes every single day, no matter what. And a lot of the time it's just 25 minutes, but I think that's a spiritual practice too, this baby steps towards what you want, like consistent baby steps every single day of movement in the direction of whatever you want. So for me, like painting for 25 minutes every single solitary day. And so even if I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be climbing Mount Everest, it's really like, oh, I can take 20 steps today or 25 steps, like upwards, and then
Mm.
I'll just stop. And, we can like be gentle with ourselves. And over time, very rapidly, if we're taking these baby steps, I do this with like all aspects of my life. You can get everything done, but in a gentle, gentle way with these like, I think there's a word for it, in sort of spiritual groups. It might be like, is there like a Japanese word meaning like it starts with a K? Anyways, I think there's a word for this baby steps thing. It's a theory, and I like it.
Mm. Well, let's find out what that is because I want to know.
We'll find out.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, that's good. Hopefully I'm right. Hopefully I'm not just like making this up.
I'm a big fan of being gentle along the way. That doesn't mean we can't be fierce and courageous, but also, whatever our path is and whatever journey we're on, being as gentle as we can, because it's within that gentleness that we are more receptive to change and receptive to being on our growth edges. I've
Yeah.
seen it in myself and I've seen it with others that it doesn't serve us to always be pushing ourselves to our outer limits. And I really like how you were speaking to that also, that it's just the fierceness that you're holding in your practice is the commitment to the practice, not necessarily, how that looks necessarily.
Yeah. And what I found is that like by doing these consistent little daily steps, and that gentleness, I eventually started to realize I was getting as much done as I ever was. Like when I used to try to think I should paint 8 hours a day or something like that, like weeks were going by and I wasn't painting at all, and I was totally blocked. Like I had such high expectations that I just never was even painting. And then I started to just paint for 25 minutes a day, and very rapidly I was like getting so much done. Like it's focused work, really like intentional for that 25 minutes. So it's really um you go in with an intention, and you do it like it's very efficient, work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then I quickly realized I was more productive than I had ever been in my life. And I was really just barely, like 25 minutes. That sounds like a ridiculously small amount of time. Like it's so doable. But also whenever I hit any challenges, whether it's like in my art itself or in my art career or in my life, as long as I'm just taking some tiny little baby action, towards movement in the right direction, like every single day, it
Mm-hmm.
just over time will sort of morph into being realized or
Mm-hmm.
resolved or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so important to be, especially when you're doing baby steps, it can be hard to see your progress. Do you have
That's
ways that you reflect back to see where you've been?
Well, I did find at the end of the 25 minutes, what I would find when I started doing this is that I would sit there because I was really blocked at the time, and I would force myself to paint for 25 minutes a day. And 25 minutes is like not too long for torture, but like almost too long. So, and I would feel like I was ruining the painting the whole entire time, like every single brush stroke was a mistake. And then at the end of the 25 minutes, I would sit back and look at my painting and realize like it actually was a little bit better. Like I was consistently making it slightly better. And sometimes I did sit back and I looked at it, I had made it worse, but I still needed to go through that to know like, okay, that direction doesn't work. We're going to have to go in a different direction. But putting the time in like always paid off. So I started to realize that just as long as I did something, it was like always, yeah, making progress. And whether it was like immediately moving me in the right direction or giving me insight as to the fact that a certain direction I thought would work wasn't going to work, it was still beneficial.
Right? Just keep moving. Just keep
Yeah.
swimming, as Dory said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's just a matter of keeping with it. You know what? You said something earlier. You referred to kind of holding a standard for yourself and that you wanted to just always continually be striving for making your best work. Um, and I'm just so intrigued by how you have this way that you speak to yourself about continually improving upon your work. Tell me more about that expression that you used. I don't remember exactly what you said. It just came out so naturally for you. Do you remember? Like,
Exactly, but yeah, I guess as like artists, probably we all like have that sort of innate sense that we like really want to make it good. And and I mean I have found it like really useful to sometimes like deliberately, especially in my intuitive paintings, actually ruin them. Or like if I start to feel like I'm creating mud, be like, okay, let's embrace this. Let's really create mud, but that's obviously not what you're talking about. But then I find that towards especially as I say, reach the middle and end of the painting, um, I really am trying to like hone the technique and yeah, just make it as good as I possibly can, bringing in all of my knowledge, all of my sort of own beliefs about art, what I think, is makes good art, and find some way to like amalgamate my like intuitive sort of the more like creative flowing sort of ideas that like flow through me with the sort of technical skills and understanding that I have so that I can, yeah, bring it to a finish that I'm, well, as artists, we're rarely truly satisfied with, but semi-satisfied with.
is is your inner critic alive and well? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yes, yes. And it always will be, I think.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, over time we sometimes just don't listen to it so much. Like we know that it's there and it can help us like make our work, you know, can give us like that drive to really try to make our work like technically as good as we want and everything like that. But then also realizing a lot of the time it's just like babbling away and it's not necessarily right. Like it'll just tell us the craziest things sometimes. And that's where it's useful to have this process where we just show up for 25 minutes a day, like no matter what our inner critic is saying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just sit your butt in the chair. I have more of a writing practice in an expressive way, like you do
Ooh,
a painting practice. And I think we've talked about Julia Cameron's morning
yes.
pages in the past. That was a really important process for me to do and has been for at many points along my journey. It's something I come to when I'm feeling unmoored or confused or stuck and or like I just need to take out the trash. And I get the sense that that's just like, stream of consciousness writing is similar to this intuitive painting that you're describing because it takes you places that you wouldn't be able to go if you sat down to try to do something. You kind of just create this big messy space for whatever to come out. And oftentimes it opens doors. I've had a similar experience where, I write, it often happens at a certain point in the writing, like it's either a word count that I'm striving for, or pages, 3 separate pages that I'm trying to fill, or what have you, or a time span. And about 2/3 of the way in is usually when the engine finally starts and my like true self starts to come through. And I've stopped writing about, the texture of a, I don't know, the blanket that I'm using or whatever. That's like, yeah, that's not going to be good. That won't be adding to any manuscripts. However, the pen's still moving and that's what's important. And so once all of that is taken out, or I'm done whining or sniveling or like writing about, over and over again, the same thing that I sat down and wrote about for 10 days straight, I get kind of sick of it and I'm like, all right. And then I start to face myself with more courage, or I have new ideas or memories show up that I want to speak to or process. And it sounds I look forward to exploring intuitive art making and image making or mark making just to see what happens. So thank you for the concept.
Yeah, and you're right. Intuitive painting is kind of like the art making version of that. In my book and in my course, the Visionary Artist Master Program, I actually do use, I call it brain drain writing, but it is basically like what Julia Cameron talks about, the morning pages. Only I do it any time of day. Sometimes I do it at night to help me sleep. But it is like draining our brain. And I think that cognitive like way of working out what's like in our minds with words is like really important. And I do a lot of like whining and complaining in the first like couple pages, like, or also to-do lists, like I have to do this and this and that, and I'll just be listing out my to-do list. Um, yeah, and I think I have the same experience that towards the end is when like my true self comes out. And then with the intuitive painting, it's maybe not quite so cognitive, so I think it's hitting two different parts. I'm reading this book right now that's really good called The Presence Process by Michael Brown, and it talks about how if we have something like a, I don't know, any kind of anything that disturbs us, basically, he says, in our life, if we can sort of like feel that feeling without kind of trying to like cognitively understand it or put words to it or a story, but just actually feel that feeling. And I guess this is sort of related to the somatic approach to healing. That sort of transforms that energy which is like stuck in us, and it sort of integrates in this way. And when I first read that, I was like, oh, that sounds great. Like, that's perfect. That's what I'm going to do. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't even know. Like, I would try to be doing it and I was still putting words in a story. I'd feel a feeling and I'd be like, ah, I understand. This is this, that. And I'd start to put words to it right away. And I think intuitive painting helps us not do that, but just actually kind of feel the feeling and sort of explore it with shapes and colors, which is like what we did as children, before we necessarily had language. So, yeah, I think they're both like really valuable and slightly different and also very related. Totally. And they're probably both really important. Sometimes I find it so useful to put words to my experiences too. So I think the combination is quite good. The brain writing and the intuitive painting. Thank you. Yes, well, actually, the book is about how to find your voice as an artist, essentially, and it basically takes everyone through 13 weeks of um, various assignments. And we do talk about brain drain writing and intuitive painting, and um, yeah, it's sort of basically a five-step framework that I use to find my own voice and my own like authentic self. So there's a chapter about understanding our creative process and what actually works for each, discovering what works for our individual selves with our creative process. And then there's also a chapter about working for 25 minutes a day and just creating that habit in our practice, and recovering a sense of play with intuitive painting. Brain drain writing is a really important one, brainstorming with thumbnails, and then daily readings, knowing your world, just kind of understanding how your art fits into the greater scheme of what's being created. And yeah, the book is going to be out in print in November. I was working on it all last year, so I'm like so excited to actually have it be coming out. And people can actually pre-order my book now if they visit KristyGordonCourses.com. There's a link there, and when you pre-order the book right now, which is like $20 or something, you'll also gain free access to an online course that's valued at $160 on color and composition in art right now. So you can go to KristyGordonCourses.com to pre-order the book, or also if you follow me on Instagram at KristyGordonArt, there's a link in my bio that people can just click to reorder it from there. And also on KristyGordonCourses.com, this framework that's discussed in the book is also what I take people through in the Visionary Artist Master Program, which I run once a year. So there's a link on my website as well where you can sign up to get notified when VAMP 2025 opens and receive, notification when it's open, and also get an exclusive discount for joining.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kristy. I just want to name that there may have been a technical glitch. And did you notice
yes.
Did you notice that I left and came back?
No, I actually didn't.
Okay. So
maybe I just talked through the whole moment.
You might have. It was right when you started talking about the book. So I just when I came back, I just let you finish. But what I'm wondering is if you would you be comfy just going again and telling us about your book?
Totally.
Just do
it better the second time. Okay.
So
do you want to just ask me? We'll just pretend you just ask me a question. That way I'll be more natural as I answer.
Exactly. Thanks for playing along. Hopefully it doesn't glitch again for us. Kristy, you just published a book. Can you tell us a bit about what this is all about?
Thank you. Yes. My book is called Become a Great Artist, and it basically walks people through the 5-step framework that we've been discussing on this podcast, namely clearing blocks with brain drain writing, creating the habit with 25 minutes a day, recovering a sense of play with intuitive painting, brainstorming with thumbnails, and knowing your world with daily reading. And it's the same process that I walk people through in my Visionary Artist Master Program, VAMP for short. And it basically helps people connect with their authentic self, reconnect with their intuition, and find their artistic voice. And it'll be out in November of 2024. I was working on it all last year, so I'm so excited for it to be coming out. And people can pre-order it now by going to KristyGordonCourses.com. And right now, for people who pre-order the book now, you'll also get free access to an online course at a value of $160 on color and composition in art, which are, I would say, the two missing links that are often overlooked in any art training. So you'll get free access to the course when you pre-order the book, and you can do that at KristyGordonCourses.com, or you can click the link in my bio when you follow me on Instagram at KristyGordonArt. And also on my website, KristyGordonCourses.com, you'll also find a link where you can join the waiting list to get notified for VAMP 2025 when it opens, and receive an exclusive discount from there as well.
That's fantastic. Kristy, you ran the VAMP program recently in the spring. Is that correct?
Yeah, I run it once a year. So I think it was around, when was it? March? I forget now. It was in the spring, and we just recently finished VAMP 2024, and it was such a great group. And it's always so amazing to see, things like intuitive paintings and just see how transformative this process is. And so next year, early in 2025, will be when I'll run the next one.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm definitely intrigued. Yeah. And congratulations on all your successes. It's been such a delight to share this space with you, Kristy. Thank you so much for joining us here. I look forward to connecting again soon.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much, Dana.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Between Breath and Air. If you're keen to support my work, please like and subscribe to this podcast. And if you'd like to be the first to know about other stuff I'm up to, hop over to my website, danasmithwellness.com, and subscribe to my love letter so I can visit your inbox a couple of times per month. So until next time, let me ask you this. During this one wild and precious life, how will you use your time while your breath is not just air?